This game is good, but not great. It's fun, but kind of forgettable. Let's talk about that. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and this is my review for Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. Okay, so this is a project that I came into pretty skeptical because this is being done by Don't Nod. That's the studio that made stuff like Vampyr and Life is Strange, which are games that, of course, have incredibly cool cutscenes and writing and cool plot lines, but they don't have great gameplay. This is not typically a group of developers that comes to mind when I think of cool combat, whereas the most standout part of Banishers is how fun it is to just bash up some ghosts. So we're going to break this into three separate chunks. We're going to talk about the fighting, we're going to talk about the incredibly, shockingly good story in this, and end off with some technical complaints as to why I feel like this game is cool, but probably going to instantly be lost to the sands of time. Okay, so to start with, let's talk about the rather unique plot. So there are games where you fight ghosts, there's games where you go out and do all sorts of hunting or break curses or fight demons, but I've never seen one set here in colonial America. This takes place in 1695 when we're trying to basically help a community of settlers stop some evil hauntings that have taken over the town of New Eden. Pretty much everybody's been killed, and it takes a long time to even get around. You can't exactly just call your friend and say, "Hey, Ghostbusters." This is a time period where banishers are a very important part of society. We're essentially ghost hunters. But when our heroes arrive here in New Eden, something goes terribly wrong. They realize that this is a job a bit beyond their typical scope, and of these two main people, there's a guy named Red, who's like a Scottish dude, and then this chick, Antea, who's like the main badass banisher. Unfortunately, in their first big confrontation at the start of the game, Antea is killed. But since they're banishers, he manages to keep her ghost around. So, throughout the course of this game, you basically get an interesting life-death yin-yang to all of your actions. Because you're there, you're Red, you're still able to communicate with people, to have dialogue trees, to have all sorts of unique interactions, but you have Antea with you, giving you advice, giving you recommendations, using her new ghostly powers to teleport you around the map or even change certain things in the environment with her ghost powers. I think the main plot line of this is incredibly good because it does let you be incredibly good or incredibly evil. So while you're doing this, the goal is to stop the beast, the main curse that has destroyed New Eden. It's completely ruined their way of life. Throughout the course of this game, there is the primary motivation of cleansing New Eden, but across the course of that, you end up just doing these tiny investigations that they call hauntings. You figure out, oh, why is this blacksmith gone missing? Let's follow his ghostly footprints and talk to bereaved spirits and figure out what's actually going on. Oh, here's people where there's one guy that's in a cave eating maggots and his best friend has gone off to hunt for food and never came back. Let's follow him and try and investigate what happened. A lot of times you figure out how good or bad these people actually are. There's cannibalism, there's betrayal, there's cheating, there's all sorts of very salacious, very chaotic stories. But this brings me to the main light-dark mechanic of Banishers of New Eden, which kind of got me the most invested in it. So you want to bring your girlfriend back to life. Antea and Red, they actually have a fantastic relationship. I just want to quickly say, these actors and actresses in this game completely killed it. I 1000% believe that these people are in love. The way that they talk to each other, the subtle animations, when they lay down to go to sleep at night, it is the most realistic portrayal of love I have ever seen in a video game. And I'm 1,000,000,000% serious about that. This is what it is like to be in love. And if my partner suddenly got killed and I had the ability to possibly bring them back, yeah, I do it. So solving these hauntings, at the end of it, you get two separate options. Either banish them, rip their soul out, punish them, and give that soul energy to your hot dead wife, or option B, send them to heaven or forgive them. Sometimes there's extra options, but typically that's the way it goes. Either take their soul and give it to your wife so that she can eventually come back to life, or the secondary option, forgive them. Oh, send them on their way. Just give them a little kiss on their boo-boos. And that's kind of the entire motivation of this game. Save the town, but more importantly, save your wife. You have the choice of sending her to heaven or murdering everybody in an effort to bring her back to life. You can be so evil. And you know what? I decided to do it. Normally, I play games pretty good. Here, I decided to be a tyrant. I butchered everybody. Now, some of these people you could say, oh, they probably deserved it. Yeah, I killed a lot of people and ripped their souls out. People that maybe didn't deserve it. But let's talk about the fighting. The story itself is cool. The setting is cool. The freaking world is cool. But what actually got me the most addicted is that combat. If I had to break this down to its simplest concepts, I would say that this is essentially a special ghostly Dark Souls. It's got strong attacks and weak attacks. It's got dodge rolls. It's got parries. But the cool twist to it is that when you're fighting, you and Antea share a space, meaning that you can just press triangle or Y and instantly flip back and forth between them. You can become her, and her fighting style is 100% different. She does ghostly punches that actually can build up damage. She can do an area effect, tiny ghost explosion that will hurt all these poltergeists, or even do things like a warp strike where she teleports to a foe and socks him in the face. But while you're playing as Antea in fights, she's slowly losing health. So you have to constantly be flipping back and forth between Red, who does good damage, but not quite as good at knocking people out of their shells and stuff, which we're going to talk about here in a second, and then flipping to Antea and using her limited resource of combat, and constantly doing this cool juggle. I think the flow of combat is great, especially in conjunction with the talent tree. There is all sorts of talents that'll give you extra damage, making it so your heavy attacks actually explode. Or one of my favorite talent points I got from any of the trees is it makes it where if I killed somebody as Antea, I could then hot swap over to Red and use his gun. It would instantly be reloaded and extra damage would be dealt with that first hit. It's such a cool mechanic, but here's where we have to start to talk about the downsides. I do think the ghosts themselves are boring designed. There's this possession system where as you're exploring the countryside, there will be the shell of a dead dog, or I don't know, a clump of wood and trees, or a lot of times dead people, and the ghosts will walk up and possess that. You can tell because you can look at their health bar and it'll show a little shell, meaning you have to punch them out of their shell before you can hurt the actual spirit itself. I guess my problem is the fact that none of these are interesting. Even if they possess somebody and pick up a gun and I have to get in a firefight, even if it's a special named enemy that's got a little bit of extra mechanics or extra health, none of this ever feels exciting. And I do feel like this is kind of a problem that drags to a lot of the combat as I got deeper into the game, which is that if I'm exploring cool spooky swamps and I'm talking to witches, I'm going to the ghost realm and it's called the void and actually battling against spirits where they reside, this stuff should be cooler, but it isn't. And I do think the problem is with the design themselves. The ghosts are so boring looking. They just kind of wobble. They look like just big old saggy sacks of energy. They're not really cool or spooky or scary. And this kind of goes to the bosses as well. Even the bosses, which I feel are supposed to be those big chapter ending badass encounters, a lot of times they're just real boring. They don't move a lot. They kind of just sit there this huge dog thing. Yeah, okay, that's kind of neat, but It's just a normal enemy that you have to hit 20 times more because they have 20 times the health. My problem is that I like the combat when it comes to my actions. I think it's cool to try and parry something or constantly be swapping back and forth. It feels great to get that next talent point on a big level up, or when I go back to camp and I use the herbs and spices and all the different leather I've collected to upgrade my gear, and now I do extra attack power. Like, my character feels good to play, but the things I'm hitting, I don't really care about. Like, I'll be honest, I played the game on normal difficulty, and a lot of times some of these encounters were just so bland. I was genuinely tempted to turn down the difficulty just so I could kill these boring guys faster and get back to that next cool puzzle, or get back to town to try and have that cool, interesting dialogue option. I like the fighting, but the enemies we're going against are so incredibly forgettable. A lot of this game, I did feel a lack of fire inside me. I didn't have that motivation to go back and play it. I review a lot of games. I beat a lot of games. I platinum a lot of games. I spend a lot of time with a controller in my hand, and I have to say that there are projects occasionally that I have to force myself to finish. And I guess the meanest thing I can say is that I did have to force myself to finish this project. As much as I enjoyed parts of it, I think it's the kind of game that I feel like it's a solid 7.5 out of 10. A lot of it I do feel like could be fixed. I do feel like this is a game that if I had a patch, a little bit of tweaking to make it so the balance was a little bit better, and I don't know, maybe at some point update those enemy character models. This game feels like it's missing a core ingredient. It is a meal that lacks the salt and pepper and salsa that would truly make it delicious. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts about Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. It's probably going to be a game that's overlooked and is later called a hidden gem. If you're already a fan of Don't Nod, check it out, but newcomers, I don't know if you're going to get what you're looking for out of this. Okay, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.